We're going to get started. This is the Board of Education meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act was provided by written notice on January 5th, 2017 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Star Ledger, Tappan to Warren, and the clerks of the Borough of Watchung and the townships of Greenbrook, Long Hill, and Warren. Roll call vote? Roll call attendance.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Mizio?
Here.
Mr. Fahey?
Here.
Ms. Spector?
Here.
Mr. Hunsinger? Here. Mr. Martins?
Here.
Mr. Mash Batista?
Here.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Here.
And Mr. Morris.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, be it hereby resolved that the board move into executive session to discuss confidential personnel matters and the CSA contract, after which action may be taken. It is expected that the matters discussed in executive session will be made public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Motion to move into executive?
So moved.
Second? Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. Somewhat different than our usual board meetings. The beginning part of this board meeting will be focused on the budget presentation, which we're obligated to give. The board will then discuss that and vote on that, and then you'll follow the typical pattern of our usual meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Jewett and Mr. Stiles for the budget presentation.
So nice to see so many people come out for the budget presentation.
Absolutely.
Welcome everyone that's here. We did give almost the same presentation 2 board meetings ago during our preview to the board prior to our formal hearing on the budget tonight and their voting on the budget after this. So our 2017-18 budget, one of the first things that Mr. Stiles and Ms. Scheiderman and I always like to do is just thank the board for their service and for their attention to really trying to maximize our resources so that we make sure that we meet student needs and we exceed student needs and expectations. So our timeline, we are a good portion of the way through it. Since our initial presentation of the board, even though the townships do no longer need to vote on the budget for its approval, we do still offer to go to the town council meetings and just present to them what is included in the budget. So we have visited Warren Township and Watchung, and tomorrow night we will be going to Long Hill. And Greenbrook folks may be here tonight to see our presentation. So that covers everyone. Our strategic plan goals, we always include them first when we are talking about the budget. These are the main drivers of any of the actual discretionary spending we have in our budget, which is not a lot, but there is some of it. And so we do always refer back to these to make sure that whatever we are spending, we can justify with how it supports our strategic plan goals and advances student learning. We always include a few highlights of student achievement. We would need about 100 slides if we were going to try and cover even a fraction of all that our students accomplished. We have a number of our students here tonight. I'm sure some of you were involved probably in the school musical recently. And you'll see up here we have a number of the awards that our music students have earned. So our SAT average continues to grow, as well as the number of national merit finalists and semifinalists we have as a result of the PSAT. We actually did just learn so this past year we had 46 national merit semifinalists, which is a result of the juniors who take the PSAT. Next year, seniors, we just got notified that we have a record 68 students who qualified as national merit semifinalists. So it's not surprising at all because we have an amazing student body and they continue to be awe-inspiring. Our AP participation continues to grow and our students continue to excel in that area as well. We had 216 students who earned some form of AP recognition, including 21 national AP scholars. In other areas, we always have a number of teams that do very well in the county and state level. Last year, both boys golf and girls softball were the county and Group 4 state champions, and girls soccer was this past fall's Somerset County champions, and we were also acknowledged by the Skylink Conference last year for exceptional sportsmanship among coaches and athletes. And the list continues. On this page, you can see we have just a selection of the different recognitions we've received in the arts, everything from the State Teen Arts Festival, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, to the DeCret School of Arts annual show. Everything listed up there, we've had numerous students participate in and earn recognition in. With regard to STEM, we have a student who recently earned recognition in the Regeneron Science Talent Search, the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair, and you can see the list goes on and on. And in America's top high schools, we continue to increase in that with our ranking. 2016, we moved up to 131. And of course, with the New Jersey Monthly rankings, we moved from number 50 to number 11 last year. So that's just a few of the highlights of what the resources help to promote and help to bring about for our students. And I will now turn it over to Mr. Stiles, who's going to get into more of the numbers.
Thank you, Ms. Jewett, Board of Education, and members of the public. This is the public hearing for our budget for the 2017-18 school year. Whether you're here or not for the budget, it's actually great that you are here, because this is the opportunity for the public to make comments, obviously on the budget, but also to understand what we're putting into it. So, you know, whatever brought you out, I'm glad you're here, because we usually don't have a huge crowd or a large crowd for the budget, but if I'll try not to bore you to tears, I'll try to be quick on some of the details, but it's kind of important for you to know, as a resident, as a parent, you know, what we're doing with the budget process, what we're spending it on, and where the resources go. It's very important. And where the resources come from, and you'll see that in a couple of slides. And one thing I always start out with some of our financial accomplishments and things that we've done well over the past 3 or 4 years. One is a rather large project that we undertook last year. It was to replace our turf field. And that turf field, what we did was, it's approximately $945,000. The project was not just the turf field, but it was the concrete border around the field. And what the board did was went out to a referendum to capture $320,000 of state aid, which we successfully did. So we essentially got a $900,000 asset for $600,000, and we used our own capital reserve, which is surplus funds, for the other 600. So we did not add any tax dollars or any tax component to this project. So it was out of surplus and state aid. So that's a terrific accomplishment for the board. And it was successfully completed in the summer, and we were very pleased with it. We switched health plan. In 15-16, we saved about $600,000. We went from Horizon to Aetna. And that's something we continue to look at. Healthcare is very difficult, as everyone knows, so that's always a challenge. We refunded our bonds, which is akin to refinancing a home mortgage. We saved $2.8 million over the life of those bonds, and that goes directly back to the taxpayers. And, you know, for about last 8 years, we've been using a program called E-rate, which we continue to use. And we've saved over $400,000 from E-rate funds coming back into the school district. So we're always very proud of those. One thing that we talked about at our last budget meeting, we continually try to control our utility costs 2 ways. Rate, we competitively bid our rate, but we also try to reduce our usage. We've installed controls for our heating and our electric, and those things are very helpful. And as you can see from the graph, since 09-10, we've pretty much steadied down. And 17-18 is an estimate. We believe that's actually going to be lower. Some of the drivers in the budget, Ms. Jewett mentioned the strategic plan. When we build our budget, we try to work with the strategic plan folks and try to incorporate those items in this budget. Enrollment's always a big issue. You'll see in the next couple of slides. We've been on a decline, but we believe at some point that may come back up. There's some housing stories going on, so I think most of the public kind of knows, and Warren and Watchung and so. So I think those things may change, but we're going to do a demographic study within the next 6 months to see if we can capture what we believe is going to go on in the next 5 years. So that's always a big driver. Number of students, number of teachers, right? Our resources, tax levy, state aid, tuition that we get from our big send receive district, Greenbrook, our capital projects the maintenance needs that we have, association agreements, our special education costs, and of course, healthcare is always a biggie. This slide just shows you our enrollment. Like I said, we're currently on a decline, but we believe that could possibly change depending on how things are going with the townships. Our tax levy increase, and this is one thing we've talked about quite a bit during the budget process. For the past 7 years, we've been either at or below 2%. This year, we made use of some cap waivers, one for healthcare, one for bank cap for previous year's cap waivers that we did not use. And we've gone up to 4%. We generally do not like to go beyond the 2%. That's something that the board and obviously the administration is very conscious of, because when you go beyond that 2%, it will increase the tax levy, which is the property taxes. You know, and each this year and then the next year. So we try to remain at that 2% when we can. Very hard to do, and you'll see it in the next couple of slides why. Here's one reason. If you go back to 09-10, the state aid we received, $1.6 million. As you can see from the graph, we lost it all in 10-11, and we've gradually gotten back up to a little less than $1 million. So we're still not where we were in 09-10. So in a $40-some million budget, we get less than $1 million from the state to help fund it. So that's very, very difficult to remain at that 2% when you're not getting support from the state. And I could go on about the federal government too, but we don't get a lot of support from them either, but I won't. Tuition revenue is a big source for us. I kind of think of it as part of the tax levy base from Greenbrook Township. We have a send-receive relationship with Greenbrook. They pay us tuition. And that tuition formula is basically a cost per pupil minus a few things. Transportation costs, less the principal portion of the bonds, and also some of the special ed costs, out-of-district placements, out-of-district tuition. Two of those items, Greenbrook Township pays. They provide transportation for their students. People kind of miss that one sometimes, or some other towns kind of miss that one, but they actually provide transportation for their own students that come here. They also pay out-of-district tuition for special education students. So for their students, they pay that. The one thing that is real tricky for us is how this is calculated, and this is why it's harder for me as a business administrator. You can see from the graph how it kind of goes up and down, up and down. What basically happens is we have to estimate what that tuition's going to be a year later. So we estimate the number of kids who are coming here from Greenbrook and what the tuition rate's going to be. And then at the end of the year, when you're done, you take the actual amount of kids who came here from Greenbrook and the actual rates per audit. You compare the two, and you're always going to have a differential. So either we're going to owe Greenbrook some money or they're going to owe us some money. So that's what makes it tricky. So we build in some reserves to try to handle that, and so does Greenbrook. But it is a challenge for us, because in a year when we miss that estimate, we have to make up ground somewhere. And that's where, it didn't hurt us this particular year, this calculation, but in years past it has, and it's always a challenge. So for us, it wasn't too bad this year. I think for Greenbrook, it was a little bit more of a challenge. My colleague would tell you that. But that's kind of the way this calculation is. And you can see the number's quite large. It's $7 million, and that's significant. On the cost side, this is one of the things as a Board of Education, we're very supportive of the special needs population, for sure. But there's a cost to it. And this graphic kind of shows you where we've been heading for the past couple of years. In 15-16, we paid $1.6 million for out-of-district tuition. We're projecting for 17-18, $2.3 million. So you can see, maintaining a 2% cap with that kind of expenditure move, that's very challenging. Healthcare is a challenge. I don't think there's anybody who's not going to tell you that. And you can see the trend where we're going. We've had some, it looks good on that graph for about 4 years, but one thing to keep in mind that there was a law that was passed called Chapter 78 where the staff members, anybody who was taking a public, in a public pension system, contributed to the health care. So for 4 years, we got an incremental increase in that contribution from the employees. Just an interesting note, the employees pay, our health care is about $5.5 million for the district. We get about $1.3 million from the employees toward the health care premium. And you can see from the graph, those 4 years kind of helped us out, but now it's leveled off. So we're not getting that incremental increase anymore. And this year, the projected increase for the health care was 11%. Again, very difficult with that 2% cap and try to maintain that. Some highlights of our proposed budget. We have a wireless network remote area improvement that we're pursuing through E-rate. We can get 40% for that. It's actually on the agenda tonight. What that does is it allows us to link the two field areas, and this is mainly for security purposes, for the health and safety of our students and obviously our staff. We are adding 500 Chromebooks for the proposed one-to-one laptop initiative. All of our elementary schools right now are using the one-to-one initiative, so we know the 8th grade students coming in are going to be used to that. So we're preparing to do that, and this is our first crack at it. We're also adding a transitional pilot program for our special needs students to transition them to post-secondary, like college settings. We're excited about that program. And we continue to try to improve the building, which is one of the bigger challenges. I talk about heating and ventilating because that's always the most expensive. But there are other things as well that we need to try to maintain, and that's always very difficult. In this particular budget, we do have some costs in there for heating and ventilating improvements and also more of the controls. Here's a snapshot of our operating expenditures last year versus this year. Just a footnote on the capital outlay number. $600,000 in that number is for the debt service relief on the turf field. So it's coming from our own surplus, so it drives that number up a little bit, but that's really not kind of representative of what the budget is. That was a project we started last year and we're completing next year. Just a pie chart for our operating expenditures. You can see a large portion of our expenditures are salary and benefits, which makes sense because we are a service organization. We don't have a lot of discretionary room in those other areas. That's why it makes it very difficult when we have to make large-scale budget cuts because it's going to be staffing. Unfortunately, when we're faced with that type of scenario, you have to go to the biggest pie because there's the pie piece, because those other little sections just don't cover a lot. On our revenue side, and I complained about it before, I'll bring your attention to the state aid. We are actually projecting a $200,000 use of extraordinary aid, which is not categorical aid. It's something a little different, and that's from an application that we filed with the state for special education costs. And the increase in our special education costs will justify that, I guess in my mind. The tax levy, as as I've said before, is at the 4%, and we are using surplus. Again, that number is inflated a little bit by that $600,000 number in the 17-18 budget cycle. The $600,000 is for that debt relief. Okay, there we go. It's as quick as me. The pie chart for the revenues, 74% from the tax levy, 17%, as I said before. I almost see that as a tax levy from Greenbrook, so that's over 90% from local property taxes. And I just updated this just before I walked in the room. This is how we compare to some other districts in our arena. This is per state report, taxpayers' guide to spending, educational spending. It's something you can get, I can provide on our website, which I do usually with our budget, the link to where I got this information. It's interesting data because it not only breaks it out, and this is a budget, a view at the entire budget, but they also break it out by administrative cost, what we put into co-curricular, athletics, instructional. So, if you get a chance, I know it's a rainy day project, but take a look at the spending guide because, first of all, I think you'll see that we compare well from a financial standpoint, but also I think there's valuable information. Okay, this I try to explain to folks this is how we have to determine how much tax levy is apportioned to the three sending towns, Warren, Long Hill, and Watchung. Each year, the percentage of the tax levy, our tax levy, the Watchung Hills High School tax levy, changes, and it changes based on a state formula. Equalized assessed values, and it also includes municipal and student enrollment counts. So each year, each town may gain some portion of our tax levy or lose, depending on those figures. And it's intended to do exactly what it says up there, equalize the tax base. So the last couple of years, Warren Township has increased. I can tell you just because of the property assessed values and the number of students, I believe, have dropped a bit. So I think that they have taken on a little bit more of a portion of our tax levy. Long Hill this year dropped, but last year they gained, and Watchung just a small amount has gained. And it does impact the tax increase or decrease. And this is the tax impact for each town. Just to keep in mind that this is based on an average home. On our website, I put a line-by-line, kind of a step-by-step process on how you can determine our tax levy impact for your house. But this, if you were to live in the average home in Warren, the average increase would be $128 for next year's budget. Watchung Borough would be $16, and Long Hill would be $88. And that's all I have. So, open the floor for questions.
We'll start off with any questions of board members to Tim.
I just have one question. The special ed costs that you have from 1.6 to 2.3, that's based on IP placements that you already have, or are you projecting?
Yeah, they're projections. Many of them we already have, and we know. Then we move out the folks that are leaving us, and then we add the ones that we know are coming in from 8th grade, based on discussions with the special education department.
And does that include the transportation cost? That's the tuition cost you were talking
Just tuition.
Right.
Any other questions or comments to Mr. Stiles? Thanks, Ms. Jewett and Mr. Stiles for the presentation. This is an opportunity for public commentary specific to the budget. Then we'll be voting on the budget, and then we'll go into our normal routine business. So there will be public opportunity to comment on agenda items and then any other items subsequently. So this is specific to the budget, if anyone has any comments they'd like to make. If you would, as always, announce your name and town you're from, please.
Joelle Strona, Millington, Long Hill Township. I'm here again tonight asking for additional support for our instrumental music program. With nearly 30% of our students enrolled in our music program, that's almost double than that of several years ago. However, our school is lagging behind with our comparable schools in the state in dollars allocated to our music program, music class offerings, and our music staff. Our students really should have the same academic experience as their peers in comparable schools. It's necessary to keep our program growing and strong. It's also necessary to provide our kids with the proper music curriculum that they need to help them transition to successful college students, and most importantly, into happy, healthy, and productive adults. What recourse will we have if more funds are not made available? How can we improve our program so it's on par with other schools? We wonder if we'll need to look to our parent booster programs to fundraise and make up the difference. Ideally, I think a booster program should go to enhance the overall experience of the music student, not as a backup method for funding equipment and supplies and so forth. I think it makes sense financially to support our programs like the music program that are growing and succeeding. With almost a third of our students enrolled in the program, these improvements will not only benefit the student, but also provide value to the entire community and the entire school. So I thank you once again for your time and the ability to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to make any comments specific to the budget? Seeing none, last opportunity of any board member before we take a roll call vote? Seeing none, Mr. Stice?
Okay. Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Get a motion in a second?
No, there was no motion. I'll move D1.
Sorry.
Second.
I thought we moved it when we had the presentation, but maybe not.
My assumption as well, but that's fine.
Okay, Ms. Barone, Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. DeMizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Ms. Fechner?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Mastrofista?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
We have any board correspondence?
We do not.
So that brings us to superintendent comments. Ms. Jewett.
Okay. So I actually just have the pleasure of sharing some accolades for our board members. I actually have 3 letters in regard to 3 of our board members that are being honored this Thursday evening at the annual school board's recognition dinner. So I'd already sent to you that we had Mr. Morrison, who has satisfied all criteria for becoming a certificated, I practice so I don't say certified, certifiable, a certificated board member award. I know you guys can start to lose your minds a little from all of this stuff. So he is going to be acknowledged for that on Thursday evening. Dr. Shabilsky has apparently also served 10 years. I guess that's your combined time on the Warren Board
Correct.
and the Watchung Hills Board, so.
Soon to be
That's
15.
close to be, oh, they're just, they're just catching up. And Mrs. Fechner, I now finally know how many years she's actually been on the board. So she's being recognized for 35 years of service on the Watchung Hills Regional High School Board of Education. Wow. So I think that's pretty-
It's been my pleasure, truly.
Since you were a teenager.
Thank you.
So that's this Thursday night. I had sent you the details, and there's no cost to attend. You just need to register ahead of time. And if anyone needs assistance with that, just let us know. So thank you for your service. That's all I have.
That's all you have? Okay. I'm standing in for Mr. Morrison, who was unable to attend tonight because of a health issue. One, I wanted to welcome all the students, faculty, parents, and our collective community back from spring break. I hope that it was fun and restful, and I hope that the limitation, if not complete absence of homework during that time period was well enjoyed. Second thing, I want to thank the Watchung Hills Diamond Club. This is one of our resolutions, D22, for their generous support of a donation towards the varsity baseball field. Third, it was brought to my attention today that one of our Watchung Hills alumni died unexpectedly, Dr. Lauren Zeitels, who was a 2002 graduate, sustained a tragic, traumatic accident, and I'd ask everyone for a moment of silence on her behalf and that of her family. Thank you, and our thoughts and prayers are with her family. And this is a little bit apropos of the comments about the budget. One of the things that Mr. Morrison asked me to present on his behalf was that he was appointing an ad hoc committee on long-range planning, and part of the intent of that was a realization that, as you saw the budget presentation, that certain expenditures, specifically special education, health benefits, become very, very difficult to manage in a 2% or less environment, and that a wholesale look at the entire budget, both from a short-term perspective, which we do annually, but as well as a long-term perspective and programs to invest in and not invest in, is thought to be critical if we continue to be able to work within that 2% cap number. And so he wanted to form a long-range planning committee as an ad hoc committee. The committee will begin immediately to work on and evaluate all aspects of the budget, both revenues and expenditures, and prioritize those with a particular eye to looking for potential savings. This will include looking at long-term capital projects as well. He asked that Chris Collins as operations chair, Lisa DiMizio as education chair, Rita Barone as personnel chair, myself and Mr. Morrison to be on that committee. So more to come, but that is soon to start. That's all for my comments, and now I would turn it over to Mr. Stiles if he has anything beyond what he's already presented.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually do have a couple of minor adjustments on the agenda, particularly in the D section. On Resolution D19, we just changed a little bit of the wording to have a per the attached list when describing the various equipment, and we provided a attached list, which is essentially the same list that's in our budget for equipment additions.
Excuse me, Tim, this will appear in the official minutes?
Correct.
Okay.
So you should have that in your package.
Yeah, no, I do have it,
Okay.
to make sure that it appears if anyone wants to, if the public
Yes.
wants to review it.
Yes, it'll be available for the public. On item D21, again, this is my fault, there was, I neglected to put down the vote. The vote is to approve the sale of the two vehicles. I had the list of vehicles, but I just added that in, and that's a minor thing. In D23, we just cleaned up the attachment. We had the red line version. We now have the final cleaned up version.
Well, since you brought it up, can I comment, but it still contains language. This document was used for different type of internship, and that language
Right.
still appears here. It was some type of a healthcare internship, and there's references to patient care in here. It's not appropriate for this
Yeah.
purpose we need it for.
Yeah, it's for the athletic
But
training.
again, it makes references to caring for patients. It's not specific. There's language here that should have been changed, and it wasn't.
That's,
I'm just saying, I can't
That's-
support this because it's not applicable to this, to what we need it for.
yeah, that's The version that you have is after attorney review.
Well, let me point it out. In the third whereas clause, both parties desire to cooperate in order to produce qualified, patient-oriented, and clinically competent healthcare professionals. In paragraph 1, it's entitled Responsibility for Patient Care. Paragraph 8 also makes reference to patient care, as does paragraph 9. So, it should be changed. Do you see that, Rita?
Well, I'm just wondering if an athletic trainer is considered a healthcare professional, eh?
No, this was used for a different purpose, because if you have
Not
the
really.
red line copy, a lot of the language was deleted and changed, but there's language that was not deleted and changed.
Yeah.
Is there urgency to having this voted on today as opposed to our next meeting?
Not for us. I mean, the only ones who will object it are all, but they don't really have a say in the matter, is Moravian College. But that's up to the board. If you don't feel comfortable with this, on the board's part, on our part, there's no urgency.
And also, one other thing with the insurance, there's no requirement now that they produce proof of insurance, so I would like that included.
You want them to produce.
Well, I'd like this contract agreement to indicate that they will produce proof that they do have this insurance required in paragraph 13.
Okay. I mean, we usually do. That's standard.
Well, but again, if we make them change, I just want it in there that they will produce a certificate of insurance
Okay.
as proof.
Would it be your suggestion that we table it till the next meeting and make the,
Well, I intend on voting no on it, so that's, to
Well,
everybody else, so.
but you have another option, which is to
Yes,
move that it be
I would-
tabled?
Right, and I would do that, right.
That makes sense, clean it up, I mean,
Well, especially
If
for
there's no
liability
urgency in it,
purposes, if
let's
something
clean it
does
up a
occur,
little
it's
bit
gonna, it's very weak that we would approve something that pertains to something else, so.
So if when we get to that, if
Yeah,
you wouldn't mind
I'll-
making that
I will.
motion, and if anybody has an objection, we'll hear about it, but otherwise, that would make the most sense, and thanks for noticing it.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you. Now, my favorite part of the meeting, the students' comments. Ms. Shabilsky and Ms. Blitzer, you're up.
On March 10th and 11th, sophomore Nile Trivedi competed in the North Jersey Regional Science Fair at Rutgers University and won the International Science and Engineering Fair Finalist Grand Prize Award. Nile's project, predicting lung cancer onset using segmentation classification, also won 5 more category awards. On April 19th,
Natalie, if you could speak a little closer to the microphone, just so we could hear better. Thanks.
On April 19th, is that better?
Yes, it is.
On April 19th, the annual World Language Honor Society inducted 333 students into 6 honor societies. Junior Vincent Tartaro received a special mention for his induction into 2 World Language Honor Societies, Italian and Spanish. We are pleased to report that 4 of our students have been selected as National Merit Scholarship winners by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. They are Caroline Rucker, Joyce Zhu, Karthik Irikam, and Michelle Shui. Each will receive a $2,500 scholarship. Additionally, Nicole Wang and Jenny Yan have been selected as winners of the National Merit Novartis Scholarship. Meanwhile, the 2018 National Merit Scholarship competition is underway, and we are extremely pleased that a record high 68 students have been recognized based on their performance on the 2016 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. Last year, we had 46 students recognized. The following students are our 2017 Scholastic Art and Writing Awards National Medalist winners. A silver medal in photography to Edward Kai, a gold medal New York Life Award in Film and Animation to Raymond Tang, a silver medal in poetry to Linda Yi, and a gold medal in flash fiction to Vivian Zhang. The Future Business Leaders of America Club competed at the state level in Atlantic City on March 16th and 17th. FBLA members tested their knowledge and skills through competitive events, share their successes, and learn new career ideas through workshops and exhibits. Watchung Hills had 8 finalists at the state level, and they will be competing at the national level June 29th to July 2nd in Anaheim, California. They are Management Decision-Making, first place, Kevin Tan and Peter Wu. Business Ethics, third place, Reed Baltuk and Renzo Mahal. Global Business, third place, Freddie Hayek, Sahil Patel, and Aris Ulaj. Coding and Programming, fourth place, Vamsi Desu. Two of our students, Karthik Irikam and Joseph Conant, have earned the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest award in scouting. To attain this distinction, a Boy Scout must demonstrate leadership, service, and outdoor skills. They are also required to do a service project that benefits the community.
And for an athletic update, at this time every year, Washington Hills Regional High School has the honor to recognize 5 seniors to receive Scholar Athlete Awards. These students have shown exceptional dedication to their sport as well as excelled in the classroom. This year's recipients are Skyline Conference Scholar Athletes, Brooke Stanicki, who earned varsity letters in fencing and soccer, and David Rauschke, who earned a varsity letter in ice hockey. Somerset County Scholar Athletes, Chelsea Semper earned her varsity letter in field hockey, and Daniel Lee earned his varsity letter in ice hockey. The NJSI AA Scholar Athlete recipient is Tina Zappi, who earned her varsity letter in softball. We'd like to thank the Buildings and Grounds Department for their undying support and dedication as they work to prepare our fields for all of our home events this season. We'd also like to thank the fans for coming out and cheering on our teams. This is a wonderful way to show your support of our athletes that dedicate 5 to 6 days a week to their sport.
That's it.
Thank you very much. Any board members have any questions for our student representatives?
I'm not sure I can answer.
Thanks. Now's the time for discussion of any of the addendum items. Does anybody have any questions or comments about them that haven't already been made? Seeing none, this is the first opportunity for public commentary specific to the agenda items. There will be a last public comment opportunity for any item. And just so you know, this usually goes pretty quickly, so you don't have to wait very long for the next opportunity. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Sure.
Before we move the A's, can I just pull A4 for a separate vote? And I'll explain why, because here we are approving the submission of the assurance statement, indicating that we approve certain model policies and procedures, but those, the second reading and approval of those would come later. So first we have to do the approval before we could approve the assurance. We have to approve the policies before we could certify that we did so.
Got it.
All right? Okay.
Makes sense.
All right, so I'm just pulling A4.
I'll entertain a motion on the A's.
I'd like to move items A1 through A3, A5 through A7, A13, and A14.
Second.
Would anybody like to discuss any of those or pull them for an additional separate vote? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Excuse me, Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Demizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Mrs. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
And Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes,
Okay, motion's
Okay,
carried.
now I can move A4.
fair enough.
a second.
Second.
Would anybody like to discuss A4 any further? Seeing none, roll call vote on A4, please.
Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Demizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Mrs. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
And Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes,
Motion
I'd like to move items A8 through A12 and A15 and 16.
Second.
anyone want to discuss any of those? Seeing none, Mr. Stiles?
Ms. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Demizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Mrs. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
And Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes,
Motion's carried.
thanks.
I'd
We have
like
no-
to move items C1 through C10.
Second.
Would anybody like to discuss any of those or pull them for a separate vote? Seeing none, Mr. Stiles? Roll call vote.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Sorry.
catch up. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Mizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Ms. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
And Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Okay, motion's carried.
I'm just trying to be respectful of the time of everyone out there.
I'd like to move D items as amended by Mr. Stiles, so we'll start with items D2 through D10.
Second.
Would anyone like to discuss any of those or pull them for separate vote?
But you know what? I amend I amend mine as well. It's D2 through D10 and D19 through D22.
That's the second.
So we're, do it one more time.
D2 through D10 and D19 through D22
Thank you.
as amended.
So D6, there's only one bid, that's what we're seeing there?
Yeah. There's only one bid, so we're rebidding it.
Okay,
And the number was above our estimate.
okay.
Seeing no requests for separate vote or discussion further, roll call vote.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Vizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Ms. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Martins?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
I'd like to move items D11 through D18 and table item D23.
Second.
Would anybody like to discuss any of those individually or vote separately on them? Seeing none, final roll call vote.
Okay, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Mizio?
Yes.
Mr. Fahey?
Yes.
Ms. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Hunsinger?
Yes.
Mr. Master Batista?
Yes.
And Dr. Shabilsky?
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Thanks. Before we hit our promised opportunity for public commentary on any topic, I just wanted to let everyone know that for the May board meetings, that the dates were changed to the subsequent week, so they are now May 9th and May 23rd. That's just in case people decide to leave before we finish the meeting, so you know when the next two meetings are. So now we'll open it up for second opportunity for public commentary. This is about any topic whatsoever, not necessarily an agenda item. And again, reminder to just state your name and the town you're from, please.
Good evening, everyone. This is Ted and Lucy Shea. We're from Watchung. We're
Last name is spelled H-S-U-H. I know it's kind of confusing.
we want to thank the board for its time and to some of the parents who from the men's basketball program who have joined us tonight to kind of express our concerns, share our concerns regarding the program with the board here. We really wanted to follow up on the letter we had sent to the board on March 31st and just kind of give the board an update as to what has occurred since then in our discussions with the administration. So subsequent to our email and letter to the administrator, to Ms. Jewett and superintendent, we met with Mr. Alexis and Mr. Van Vliet, the athletic director, again on April 5th. We discussed and highlighted the need for a systemic feedback process or assessment process for the men's basketball program. I would say that our comments probably apply to all 33 programs within the athletic department, simply because I think that currently the process for evaluating any athletic program appears to be solely based on the assessment and judgment of the athletic director, which is one person. That may not be the process, but that's what appears to us to be the current process. I think this process fails to take into account the perspective and the feedback from the parents and the players in the program. Why do we think the process needs to be anonymous? These are some of the reasons we provided Mr. Alexis as Mr. Van Vliet, is that many parents we've spoken to in the program who are unhappy were afraid to come out and speak or send in letters to the board or the administration because they feared repercussions for their kids in the program. I mean, that could happen in any number of ways, whether it's tryouts next year, it could be playing time during the season. So it's all these things that they're concerned about, or we've raised to Mr. Alexis and Mr. Van Vliet, and we shared those concerns with them. And I think one of the things that concerns us is that we also highlighted to Mr. Alexis and Mr. Van Vliet that the players were afraid to speak with head coach Sultan that they felt intimidated to speak with him. And I think we were surprised that the response we received from Mr. Van Vliet was, this is common in sports. And I find that a little disturbing from a perspective as a parent, because we would think that teachers and coaches should be approachable. They shouldn't be afraid to be, they should be approachable. They should be able to get feedback from their coaches. The second thing that we wanted to highlight was that, Mr. Alexis informed us that his views on the anonymous assessment program or process wasn't necessarily needed, because he thought the current process was sufficient. Again, we went back and forth a little bit about this, but he agreed that he would take it up with Ms. Jewett and the Board of Education and discuss this further and come back to Lucy and I on this issue. So subsequent to that meeting on April 5th, Lucy and I sent an update to the parents in the program, as many parents have expressed to us they wanted to hear an update on how the discussions with the administration was progressing. We told the program that, we emailed the program that we had asked for an anonymous survey or assessment to be implemented, and that, we thought that Coach Sultan needed to be replaced, because we just thought his actions as a head coach.
I just want to interrupt
Right.
you for 1 second, just to give you a little warning.
Sure.
You are certainly free to speak freely and say whatever you would like, but I just want to caution you that should you choose to speak about a particular staff member,
Okay.
there can be legal repercussions. The meeting is recorded.
Okay.
So I just want you to be mindful of that,
That's
just a caution.
perfectly fine.
Okay?
You have our letters, so we're not, I understand this is a public forum, many parents are here as well, okay? So, having said that, on April 6th, I received a call from Mr. Alexis, and there was two things that he was clearly wanting to convey. First, our email that we had sent to the parents in the program was forwarded to Mr. Alexis. He felt that we had mischaracterized the discussions we had with Mr. Alexis during the meeting, because we had said that we thought a work plan had been put in place for the head coach. And he said, nope, there's no such work plan in place. He said, so I asked Mr. Alexis, I said, what did you mean by a growth model then? And he said, well, we have growth models in place for students, faculty, and administration members. And so I said, well, you've repeated that multiple times. I said, I hope you can appreciate we didn't mean to mischaracterize our discussions with you, but we wanted to make clear that you mentioned multiple times that there was a growth model. So you can appreciate our confusion, not being familiar with the process, that we thought a growth model meant a growth plan. So he clarified, he disabused us of that understanding, and we appreciate that clarification from Mr. Alexis. But then he subsequently informed us that he spoke with Ms. Jewett and the Board of Education, and the decision from both Ms. Jewett and the Board of Education was that Coach Sultan would remain the head coach of the men's basketball program. He is the head coach. There was no decisions and no further actions were going to be taken. So we're here tonight because we're surprised that, first of all, that the administration was not open to a feedback process, especially an anonymous survey, given the facts that we've highlighted, that there are parents that are afraid to come forward and speak, or provide negative feedback to the program if they were unhappy, that players were afraid to speak with the coach directly. So we thought that this would help serve as a tool for the administration and the Board of Ed to evaluate a program. We thought it would be an additional data point. We didn't see the harm in this. And one argument that I can certainly see people thinking is that, well, you're only going to get feedback from parents or players who have negative feedback. But very simply, we made the point very simply that if the player or the parents participating in the program, just make it a requirement that they have to respond to a survey. It's much easier to get players and parents who are in a program, who are motivated to and have an interest in the growth and development of a program to respond. And as I look at the administration and its attempt to obtain feedback through our surveys such as the scope and the interest in and the administration's interest in having a more transparent process, so we just found it inconsistent that they would not want to take this further, because simply from a survey standpoint, it's another tool. It provides consistency across all programs, because frankly, the board or the administration may not know that there are other issues in all 33 of the Watchung Hill's athletic programs. We're not saying there are, but you don't know if this is specific to one program. As you're aware that, you've had the baseball coaches replaced recently, you've had the football coach replaced recently. So this is something that I think would help the Board of Education proactively assess if there are problems developing in a program, because you're getting feedback from all the parents and all the players in the program. So that is the first thing we'd really like the board to consider. And some other additional recommendations we have for the board to consider for the men's basketball program, but as well as other athletic programs, is I'm not sure if you're aware, players and parents are asked to sign a code of conduct in the men's basketball program. But there's no such code of conduct for the coaches, and they're not asked to sign one. So again, seems unbalanced, and we don't think that is the appropriate way to handle a program. And if you look at the men's basketball website, there's no clear delineation of the rosters of the players. There's just a listing of the players' names and the years that they're in, from freshman to senior. So you don't know exactly, if you were looking at this from another team or as a parent, which player's on a JV team, which player's on the varsity team, which player's on the freshman team. We understand it as parents, who is where, but that again shows you that that can create some confusion in its communications and understanding with players and parents as well. One other thing we like to highlight, and that some parents share this view as well, there's off-season programs that are run in the men's basketball program. We think those are great, but they're clearly not open to all players in the program, which is frankly disappointing. Luckily, our son's been invited, but I would say there are other parents whose kids have not been invited to participate in the off-season programs, and we don't know the rationale or how that decision is being made. Finally, what we also like to see is a formal review mid-season and post-season for the players. Now, frankly, if the coach is consistently providing feedback, we don't think this is needed, but given what we've observed, this is not occurring. So I would say that from a player standpoint, as a parent standpoint, and to eliminate any confusion and doubt when we get into these discussions about a sports program, that there should be a formal documented review for the players mid and postseason. So there's no ambiguity as to the status of use of a player. Finally, we want to address our second point, which was, we think that the head coach of the men's basketball program needs to be replaced, given we just find his actions don't provide a positive and supportive experience for the players, and he does not appear to be committed to developing the complete player, as we've noted in our letter on March 31st. So for the majority of players, I hope the board appreciates that high school sports is the last time that they will have an opportunity to play sports competitively. It is one of the few things that they can do and point back to as an accomplishment if they so choose to stay with the program in their 4 years of high school experience. And when we see a program or a coach that is unsupportive and doesn't seem to interested in mentoring or developing a player, we just find that disappointing, and frankly, it seems in many ways that the program itself has discouraged players from continuing in the program. So we think that this needs to change, and the only way to change that is not through simply a growth model that has been described by the administration, but a growth model that also incorporates the growth model and takes into account the growth model of the players. So based on that, I would say that, I hope the Board of Ed will take our feedback positively. We are here for the program. Our son, unfortunately, based on the past year's experience, is done with the program. So we're not here for our son in terms of trying to change the coaching position so that he could come back and play next year. That's his decision. We're here simply because we just see the issues that have occurred in the program consistently over a number of years. We want to bring it to the board's attention and the administration's attention, and hopefully, that will allow the board to make some decisions and affect some change. I want to be very clear. We're not talking about a tenured faculty position. We are talking about a coaching position that is renewed annually by the Board of Ed. So this is not a faculty position we're talking about. So the bar and the threshold for replacing a coach should be and must be much lower than the bar for a tenured teaching position. So with that, we're happy to take any questions.
I do have one thing to add.
Yeah.
I was happy to see on your strategic plan goals, and this is I quote, "Create and expand programs and services that enhance the social and emotional wellness of all the students within a compassionate learning community." So that was your number one goal in terms of within your budget and your strategy. So I think from our letter and from speaking out, you realize it's not happening on the basketball program. The kids do not feel emotionally welled, or they don't feel that there's a compassionate environment that they're playing in. So to me, having seen that as your number one goal, I'm very disappointed that it's not meeting up to that. So I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, and then I would just...
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just want to conclude, just Lucy and I played high school varsity sports, not basketball, varsity sports.
Me, basketball.
We fully appreciate, just to be very clear, we fully appreciate the coach-player relationship. You know, our kids have been in the program for 5 years. This is the first time we've come in front of the administration, the athletic director, and the board to even speak out about the program. So it's not that we have a hidden agenda here. We really want to see improvements in the program. Unfortunately, after long and lengthy discussions between ourselves, we just don't see it, that changes or improvements in the program can occur with the current environment. And that's simply because, based on the meetings we've had with the coach, there was plenty of opportunity for the coach to express, let me talk to your son and see how he feels. Could have simply reached out and said, I'd like to, I'm sorry he feels that way. Let me address the issue. There was no effort made, so it just shows me that there's not a compassionate environment, to use your terms, or just an invested interest in developing the players. So with that, we thank the board. If there's any questions, we'd happy to address it. If not, we'd certainly open it up to the other parents who also wanted to share their experience with the men's basketball program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for both your letter and your time coming out today to express your feelings about this.
Good evening. My name is Rosa Kraus, and my son is currently a freshman at Watchung Regional High School, who participated in the men's basketball program.
Can you mention your town? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just, you mentioned your name. If you would just tell us what town you're from.
I'm from 2 Holly Drive in Warren.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
I am here to voice my concern on how the program was overall ran. I am also going to request that my son not suffer any repercussion by me speaking up. I would like to start by first discussion how poorly the trial process was handled. There was one young man in particular who made the team without trying out due to an injury. Another one attended one of the sessions, got injured, and still made the team. I'm sorry, but if you are injured and cannot make the tryouts, then you don't make the team. It's as simple as that. We should not play favorites, which is what seemed in both cases. And if you don't make the team, then you shouldn't be able to cry your way back, as it wasn't the case. Another young man who was cut from the team, and yet somehow he made his way back into the team roster. I believe it is our job as parents, educators, and coaches to teach them that failure is part of success, because you must fall forward in order to go. You must fall forward in order to go forward. During the season, my son got sick, and there were 2 instances he was not able to play. One, he got the flu and was instructed by the doctor not to attend school and not engage in any type of physical activity. And the other, when he suffered an injury during a game. After seeking treatment by a physical therapist, he was instructed to stay off the knee for roughly a week to give it healing time. Well, during these 2 occurrences, where the decisions were made to keep Thomas off from not attending practice, he would beg and say, "Mom, I need to go to practice, because if I don't, Coach Salton will punish me and I will not be able to start in my first game back." In preparing for tonight's meeting, after reading the men's basketball program, I understand why Thomas was so persistent on attending practice. It is Coach Salton's expectations that you must attend every practice and game, whether you are sick, injured, tired, etc., unless there is a family emergency. I am all about making these young men prove that they are committed to the basketball program, and there should be a clear understanding what is expected of them. But to expect the boys attending practice when they are sick, I think is not only extreme, but also very irresponsible on Coach Salton's part. And in the instance where Thomas did not attend practice due to illness and injury, and doctor's notes were provided, he was punished by not being part of the starting lineup in the first game back. Coach Salton was also Thomas's gym teacher, and I cannot tell you the numerous times I heard not only from my son, but other young men say, "Damn, the varsity team lost. We are going to pay for this tomorrow." And I would ask why their response was always the same. Coach Salton is going to be in a bad mood, and he's going to take it out on us
Ms.
during
Kraus,
gym.
I am just going to give you the same
I
caution,
understand.
just so you're
I
aware
understand.
of speaking about a
Yep,
staff
I
member in
understand.
public.
I understand. How can he expect these young men to be positive and supportive, yet he's the first one to break the rules? He needs to maintain the two separate. I understand he has a double role as a coach and an educator, but he must not mix the two. Coach Salton's communication or lack of there is another issue I have. We had no idea what was going on with the freshman team. These young men were being coached not by one or two, but by 3 different coaches during the season. And we as parents were left in the dark as to what was going on. As parents, we never got any notifications when practices were canceled. And then there was the time when the team showed up for an 8 a.m. Saturday practice and no coach showed up, and the boys were left alone and supervised for a couple of hours at the school, and parents weren't notified until 3:30 p.m. This is simply unacceptable. I had sent him several emails throughout the year, and I would say 90% of the times, I never got an answer. Another example on lack of communication, I requested a meeting with Coach Salton regarding the summer league. Until this day, I am still waiting to hear from him. The issue was that all the kids had been notified that they had made the summer league, and it wasn't until Thomas sent him an email asking him what could he work on to make the league next summer that he played dumb and blamed Lori Pillsbury about omitting Thomas's name from the list, which I don't believe it was the case. Even if it was, I deserved a phone call or an email with some sort of explanation. Lastly, I reached out to Coach Ed Colson, who graciously volunteered his time during the part of the season and asked him to give his thoughts on professionalism regarding Coach Salton. His proudest moment at our high school was getting their first win after being down 2-0 to start the season. And the boys were pretty down about losing, and it was important to start winning early in the season. The freshman team record at the time of Coach Ed's departure was 9-5, yet they ended the season 11-11, which means they lost more games than they won. But it seems Coach Salton's philosophy towards the freshman team is who cares if they win or lose. Coach Ed said, and I quote, "Probably one of the saddest moments he made in my time there was, I don't care about winning at the freshman level. They just need to be ready to play for me when they move up from the freshman team." That stunned Coach Ed, and quite honestly, myself. How can you build a successful basketball program if you don't believe in your freshman team? Yes, winning is not the only priority, but winning is a good thing. It builds confidence. How do you get the players to believe in them, in their team, and in themselves if their coach doesn't care what the results are? Coach Ed said the toughest challenge became when Coach Salton wanted things done his way versus Coach Ed's way, and it's not the best way for the team to win. I am going to quote Coach Ed here. Coach Salton has a system that he refers, in my coaching philosophy, is to coach the talent you have. In my opinion, you can't have a successful team if you don't have the right players. Example, if you have players that are big and slow, you can't run fast break system. It won't work. On the flip side, if you have a bunch of small, fast players, slowing it down to throw inside makes no sense. So I feel that you have to coach your talent. Coach Salton has an amazing attention to detail. That is something that in all my years of being involved in all aspects of basketball, from recreation, AAU, high school, college, semi-pro, player, referee, and coach, I can honestly say there are few that I have ever seen with this much attention to detail. He has everything charted out. Everyone knows what and where they should be and what they are supposed to be doing within the entire program. Coach Salton can be a bit overbearing, and he seems to hold grudges, which is a bad thing. I am the co-founder and director of my own AAU basketball program. You have to hold an open mind and listen when others speak up, as they may see something you don't. He seems to take any suggestion to any of his processes that he has in place and take it personally, whether from a player or a coach. Take the tryout and cut process. For instance, I was told that it was my team and make my own decisions. Yet I was told I had to keep certain kids for certain reasons, which were never disclosed to me. I believe there weren't any favorites, but there were players that should have been cut, but I was forced to keep them in as players. Other players I wanted to bring back to the tryout process, but I was told I couldn't. Coach Ed believes that playing the political game in this situation was not in the best interest of a team. Now that he has had time to reflect on Coach Salton, he feels he shouldn't have given up. My son Thomas loves playing for the Watchung Hills basketball team, but after this experience this past year, he has repeatedly stated that he does not want to play on the basketball team if Coach Salton is running the basketball program. Coach Salton has not led this basketball program in an ethical matter. He has not allowed the coaches to be the coach. He does not care if the freshman team win or loses. He does not run fair basketball tryouts and instead tells the coaches certain kids can and cannot be cut. Other kids are cut and magically back on the team. Does not communicate properly to the players, to the parents, as discussed earlier. Does not take constructive criticism, losing out on his own players. You have heard and will hear from many concerned parents of how Coach Salton is not good for Watchung Hills basketball program. I strongly suggest the board to look into prior year complaints against Coach Salton that probably have not been heard or may have not even been communicated to the board. Remember, Coach Ed, who volunteered his time and is an accomplished coach who the boys loved playing for, he was dismissed by Coach Salton via text. I leave you with this today and with all the testimony you have heard from other concerned parents. Is this the type of person you want to head a basketball program for our own children? I think we both know the answer to that. Thank you for your time and for the courage of all the concerned parents today to speak up and let you know what is going on in our basketball program. I ask that everything mentioned here not fall on deaf ears, but something be done.
Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Melissa Bressler. I'm from Warren. I didn't have anything prepared, but I'm going to just read a letter that I sent to Ms. Jewett. I'm writing this letter to you regarding this situation with Coach Salton. I know I shouldn't say his name, but it's okay. I assume you know the situation and that parents will be attending the meeting next week in an attempt to have him fired from his position. I feel that it is important that you know that not all parents are in support of this. I have two sons in the program, a junior and a freshman. Both played on the varsity team. My older son has been in the program since his freshman year. During his JV season, Coach Salton pulled him up to varsity during the last 3 weeks, the only sophomore. This was an amazing accomplishment for my son as he worked hard and played hard. Coach Salton acknowledged it, praised his dedication, and asked him to start practicing with the varsity team. As a mother of an athlete, this was a huge gesture. Steven started all 26 games this season as a junior and was awarded second team all-conference and honorable mention all-area. An accomplishment not just for him, but for the program, especially because we didn't have a winning season. My younger son is a freshman. Most people know he's a 5-foot freshman, and within 2 weeks he was moved up to JV, and then Coach Salton asked him to practice and sit on the varsity bench. He actually he played, scored, and earned a varsity letter. The reason why I feel that this is important to express is because in the letter that was sent out to describe Coach Salton and the program, they stated that he does not provide a supportive experience and that he does not develop a complete player. In my boy's situation, that is not true. He saw their strengths and encouraged them to be the best athletes and players that they can be, giving them both the opportunity to succeed. Both of my boys are under 5'6". He does not see their size, he sees their skill. Many coaches cannot see beyond the height, especially in basketball. I'm not a coach, but as you can imagine, I have sat through hundreds of games from rec to AAU. Every coach is different. We may not agree with their style of coaching, but I could tell you firsthand, Coach Sultan has never been verbally disrespectful to his players or parents. He himself is an athlete, and bottom line, all coaches want to win and they play to win. I believe he should not be fired because of this situation and the mission of some of the parents and families on this team. This experience, this attack on him is truly unnecessary and unfair. There will always be parents that are not happy. Coach Sultan is a teacher, a coach, a father, a husband. I believe he deserves a chance to make some changes that can improve the program. I believe he will, because I do think that this program is important to him and that players are important to him. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts.
Hello, my name is Jesse Ross. I'm a 2009 alumni here from Warren. I don't have something big put together. I came from New York. I'm really saddened why I'm here today. I've been through this situation before. Coach Diaz, we all came here to sport due to one or two angry parents, and we had to come here. The whole team was here to support him. That was before a lot of championships were then won and a lot of great memories were formed. You know, it's just really unfair what's going on right now. I understand situations are always tough and kids come first, but I know Coach Sultan very well, and I want to speak to some of his character things tonight. But before that, I want to kind of go into how this Watchung Hills basketball program has transformed over the years for some parents that haven't seen it. Before Coach McAteer, who I've known almost my whole life, we probably won maybe 4 games a year. Okay, it was not a winning atmosphere whatsoever. I was on varsity also my freshman year, brought up for that state game. And some things that happened that game between my teammates to the coaches are truly rude, disrespectful, and I was never taught to act that way. What happened was teammates were so upset, spit on the coaches at the end of the game. We had parents attacking each other, and I'm sure they then had this, forum to speak to you guys today. And what's happened since then has only gotten better. We have a winning culture. He preaches family. We now come back. I've gone to a practice last year, was able to speak to the kids, had that opportunity. I have all my teammates that we still talk about all these great memories that were formed due to Coach Sultan. And I don't want to go too much more into that. I want to speak about my relationship with him and the character that really he exudes every single day. So I put this together just kind of quickly. It's not as at length as the other folks, but I first met Coach Sultan in 2005 while I was an 8th grader at Warren Middle School during an end-of-year basketball event. Before then, I really didn't have any preconceived notion of what our relationship could be or would be, and only heard various tidbits from former teammates that were on his undefeated freshman team at Watchung Hills that year. Little did I know that day was the start of a friendship that lasts till this day, and he would be an instrumental figure, and it would have a profound impact on me in the years to come. I had the opportunity to play for Coach 3 of my 4 years while at the basketball program here. Once during my freshman year, then again during my junior and senior years. Right away, I knew he was a different coach than my other coaches in that he demanded the best out of me and for us to carry ourselves with such integrity on and off the court. You see, he was not the type of coach to sugarcoat reality and always provided his honest feedback, as hard as it may be. That was especially hard for me as a younger teenager. I was mostly receiving praise during those years, so it was very different for me. Although I knew he was only wanted the best for me, and there was various instances that truly convey Justin Sultan's character, commitment, and dedication that make him an ultimate teacher and mentor. During my freshman year, our team had a poor performance in which our sluggishness, lack of passion, and focus were apparent to anyone that was in the gym that day. We were then punished, as everyone so loves using that word tonight, after the game by having an early Saturday morning practice the next day, which comprised of more cardio than basketball-focused drills, I will say that, which really isn't any different than anyone, that's pretty much expected. played in college myself. But what stood out to me that day was our team's reaction to Coach after practice. I remember vividly walking into his office shortly after practice with other teammates to talk about upcoming games and eventually life. There was no anger or frustrations towards each other, like many would have expect possibly after a grueling workout, because he knew, we all knew, that he was only trying to make us better, and we were truly in this together. None of us really considered this punishment, I will say that, but rather taking responsibility for our actions and putting our energy into getting better for the future. Another instance that stands out to me that demonstrates Coach's immense commitment to his players was during my junior year on the varsity basketball team. Coach Salton was then a varsity assistant to Coach McAteer, but you really wouldn't know because he spent so much time on us. It was amazing and ridiculous. Before each game, he put together a whole pamphlet for the entire team. Every single player, last person on the bench, on down to some of the starters. A detailed package of what the other team, a scouting report, and a personal letter to motivate each and every one of us and how we could have an impact on that game. I've never seen that ever playing Division I baseball, and any of my teams, that amount of time, respect, and effort really put into us. I'm sure now, he has 2 little girls, so I'm sure he's a little bit busier in his off time, but he did that for each one of us. After my senior season ended, was about the time that relationship with Coach started transforming from coach to mentor. He was instrumental in my commitment, in my offer to play Division I baseball at the University of Pennsylvania by supporting me through writing a recommendation letter to the dean's office detailing why I would be such an asset to this Ivy League institution. I couldn't be more appreciative to him, as attending UPenn was one of the best things that had ever happened to me, period. However, this only marked the start of my journey, of a tough journey for me, as I had to compete against some of the most brilliant minds in the classroom while also battling 4 arthroscopic surgeries that kept me off the field. I was able to endure these tough times marked by adversity through the mental strength and hard work that Coach Salton had previously instilled in me. I also had all the lessons that he previously taught me at my fingertips, while he was also a soundboard whenever I needed him. I could call him, I could text him, and he was there for me. Put me in my place sometimes to let me know, you can keep doing this, put your head down and keep working. But it's these selfless acts that personify his moral fiber and infectious attitude that make him such a benefit to his players, myself included. These were just a few examples. I really could go on and on and on and take hours of your time. Of what Coach Salton has meant to me, and it's easy to see how he's transcended from coach to mentor to friend for me. Sometimes it's tough love that he exhausts, but it is without a doubt only for the best interest of the individuals. For these reasons, I know he is the absolute best person to lead the Watchung Hills program, and why it would be detrimental for all future Watchung Hills Warriors basketball players to not have Justin Salton as their leaders. Thank you for this time and platform.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is John Keller. I'm from Warren Township. This is the last place I'd like to be tonight. I have coached basketball since I got out of college, over 25 years. I've coached at the high school level, at a level much higher than Watchung Hills, playing teams in the top 5 in the state, and we were in the top 10 in the state. I raised a son who went through all levels of basketball here at Watchung Hills. He's graduated or will graduate this year. I'm not here to speak on my son's behalf. He will never play for another basketball team here at Watchung Hills. But I must say, the first game we ever saw, I went to a high school basketball game to saw Watchung Hills play with my son, was actually the last speaker. He hit a game-winning 3 against at Bridgewater against Immaculata to win the county championship. My son was about 3rd or 4th grade at that time. Went crazy, the crowd was going. He says, that's where I want to play. He was a player. Over the years, other things, he's an okay player. He started this year for the varsity basketball team. But over the 25 years of my coaching, the last 2 have been the roughest. And I didn't even have a team. There's one boy here tonight who, after his freshman year, maybe the most gifted athlete that this school has seen in a while, said, I cannot play for that program. And he wound up going to another sport here in Watchung Hills. A friend of my son's actually transferred to Boundbrook because he was not going to get a fair deal here. Can you imagine going from Watchung to Boundbrook? so he had an opportunity to play. There's other students who have not ingratiated with the program. They do not want to play at the way it is now. The mind games, it's amazing when you look at Watchung Hills, it says the men's basketball team. Any other place, it says the boys' basketball team. College is men's, high school is boys. These are tall, 6 foot, whatever they happen to be, they're boys. The mental anguish, the games that went on with these kids' heads was remarkable. I've had more boys, 17 years old, crying on my shoulder this year than I can tell you. I don't know why he did that to me. I don't understand. I brought it up to the athletic director. It's not for my son, it's for the next generation. I wish somebody would have came forward 3-4 years ago and said something. To see these boys not wanting to play for the program is ridiculous, but I understand where they're coming from. There's hundreds of coaches out there. Last year for the JV team, they were undersized. The tallest kid on the team was 5'11" at the time. They won the championship. They would dive through a wall for the coach. This year, when I hear statements like, he's not going to take my senior year away from me, I will not put up with that. I've played basketball for the 12, 14 years of my life. I will not let him take it away. The amount of boys who have quit the team is, I've never heard that. I would never allow my son to quit, and he said he will not take the senior year away. For after games, for a janitor to come up and say to you, a custodian, excuse me, I don't understand. Why didn't that kid play? The last game of the season, 2 seniors who had started all year were not allowed, they didn't start the game. No explanation. They didn't miss a practice. They didn't miss anything. They were not allowed. The head games, the mind games that were going on, it is not fair. I don't disagree with what Mr. Ross said. At that time, it was a different program. But right now, I can get into the X's and O's and why we lost this year when you have a team until the last week of the season, or last 2 weeks of the season, didn't have anybody over 6'2", playing the way, I don't want to get into the X's and O's, but if you want, I will. But it is absolutely ridiculous that kids will transfer out of Watchung Hills because of the program. I understand that other schools, if you have a kid who's a phenomenal football player, maybe they're going to go play for this town. If he's great in baseball, he goes for another. We had opportunities to go to Pingree and Gill or whatever it had to be, but he wanted to play here. So it's not about my son, but it is not fair for the mental anguish that these boys went through. And it's not 2 or 3 parents coming up to me and saying, my kid doesn't know what to do. He's afraid to shoot the ball. Can you go talk to him? And I would go and talk to him. Other boys crying on your shoulder. It is not fair. Now, if I got judged every time I didn't have a great basketball season, I wouldn't have coached for 25 years. It probably would have been 2 and I'm out. It's not about winning. But the great memories that Mr. Ross had is not shared by the seniors this year. They banded together against the coach because they didn't want that opportunity. They still had their moments. They'll all go when they're 30, 40, my age, 50 years old. Oh, remember when I hit this shot or that shot? There's talent here. There's going to be a 1,000-point score on the boys' side this year. There was a 1,000-point score on the girls' side. Between football and basketball, they're the most sports that most fans come to. There was nobody in the stands. A few games, they made it into something, and we would have it. The senior night was a night. They had a special night for Coach Cruz, the first game of the season. It was great. It was electric. Those are the moments you want for your kids growing up. It's not about winning and losing, very few times. But when a kid comes home, or the parent calls me up and says, my son is going to quit, can you talk to him? Because they knew that I coached. It's not 2 or 3 kids, it's 4 or 5 kids. And those are just the kids who have called me. So, Coach has good attributes. He is very prepared. He does certain things well. But I don't know where he lost the mindset that these are boys. They are not men. If you have to bench a kid, tell him why. Don't let him sit there for no reason and wonder about it. It is not fair to see a 17-year-old kid lose his composure and want to quit a team. It's not about my son, it's about the next generation. I wish somebody would have stepped up years ago. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Victor Tarka. I'm from Watchung, and I'd like to introduce myself and my qualification in basketball experience. I'm a retired professional basketball player from Poland. I played college level, and I had also 8 years as a referee after my career, let's say, ended. And in past 2 years, I attended few of Watchung Hills varsity games coached by Mr. Sultan. What caught my attention was the fact that Mr. Sultan completely lacks the feel for the game. During the game, I observed that he didn't react to the style and changes in strategies of the opponent teams. He kept running his so-called running style of the game by poorly making substitutions with no apparent time management for his main players, and no changes to defense strategies, etc., etc. At the end of the fourth quarter, his main players were exhausted. Best player on the court, Danny Pillsbury, had nothing left in the tank, missing 4 crucial free throws, resulting in another loss. During that game, Watchung Hills team had the 3 other coaches and 8 players on the bench. But it was visible to the audience that they had nothing to say during their timeouts and during the game. Both games I watched, we lost in very similar way. I'm sharing my view on this matter as a fan and supporter of Watchung Hills High School, but I am not a fan of the current basketball program coached by Mr. Sultan, a program that continues to have a losing track record. Our students have to have a one-in-lifetime chance to represent and play for their school. This change is a privilege. This chance is a privilege. But coaching style of Mr. Sultan, who, I quote, "I don't care if I win or lose," is stripping them from the experience they deserve. Based on my conversation with past basketball coaches from Watchung Hills, selections for freshman, JV, and varsity teams are based on Mr. Sultan's preference, not necessarily skill level or potential contribution to the team. I'm following this basketball program for the last 3 years, and it's becoming more apparent that Mr. Sultan treats this program as his private one. Watchung Hills is still public school, and such a program should have more transparency into its goals, regulations, but most importantly, it must ensure more transparency into its goals and regulations. Ensure that our children are treated fairly and measured according to their skills and abilities. Decisions who can participate in the summer basketball program are purely made by Mr. Sultan based on his preference. My 6'5" son asked Mr. Sultan if he can participate in the summer league, and he replied to him that he's not in current roster, he cannot play, which is not true, because my son was invited to play summer league for Morristown High School as a non-student in that high school, and he played for the whole league up there. During the first couple of years while my son was on the team, Mr. Sultan kept sending us weekly letters, motivational memos, etc. That is great, but sending out motivational emails is one thing, but implementing in the real life is another one. Attitude such, "I don't care if I win or lose," is not what we expect of our head coach. In addition, most would agree that Watchung Hills is expecting much more of the head coach who's representing the program of the school. Current basketball program under the direction of Mr. Sultan is laughing stock among other high school coaches who I had the chance to talk with. They basically saying that everybody wants to play Watchung Hills because this is like black hole on the basketball map right now. We have what, 3-4 losing season in a row right now? Coach should not be only basketball wizard for our players, but also second father figure who could guide them to become better players, student and person. In my opinion, Mr. Sultan is lacking many fundamental qualities required for such a prestige position, making him unfit for the head coach position he currently holds. I believe the main contributor to that failure of Watchung basketball program is our head coach, Mr. Sultan. In past 3 years, we had 3 freshman coaches who survived just 1 season. That alone speaks volumes. In my opinion, the only way this program can be revived and brought back to its initial principles is by replacement head coach. My wife and I, we sent a letter to the board describing our son's experience in past 3 years. Especially, I'd like to underline the moment when my son suffered concussion on the job during the practice. The result of the concussion is because he was forced to drill with player which was foot short. He was undercut, he hit deck very hard, and he had the concussion. He was out for the month. You know, this is basic skills, basic drills, and when I played, we never had the concussions because they were run by professionals. As far as I know, Mr. Sultan lacks experience as a basketball player. He was a very good wide receiver, but doesn't constitute that he is a basketball player, and he can teach high school guys to play and how to perform on the basketball court. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to make any comments on any matter?
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Lori Pillsbury, Millington, New Jersey.
Thank you. I need to speak.
Oh, okay.
just
I'm going to
because of
really
the
bend
rain.
forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Lori Pillsbury, Millington, New Jersey. First, I want to acknowledge and recognize the coaches.
I don't think the microphone's working.
What? Okay. Can you hear me?
I think the rain's affecting
hear
you a
the
little bit
rain.
too.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yes.
then I will shout. I have no problem doing that. All right. First, I want to acknowledge the coaches, teachers, and administration, including the athletic director, because realize everybody has a difficult job, because it is extremely challenging to make everybody happy. However, we're looking for the best scenario where everyone would understand the guidelines, rules, and criteria that is used to govern the program and be able to live with it. We are here today, I believe, because there is a lack of communication and understanding by all parties involved. My husband and I do not support the dismissal of Coach Sultan. However, we do recognize that there are areas where the program could benefit from changes. Our family's experience has been very positive. Our son has had the opportunity to be on the boys basketball team since his freshman year, being a starter on varsity. He has thrived in the basketball program as he has played and contributed to the team both on and off the court. Coach Sultan has made my son's transition to high school playing on the varsity team with mostly upperclassmen easier. Coach Sultan and Coach Schaefer have done nothing but support Dan in his passion over the game for the last 3 seasons. In addition, Coach Sultan has been actively and proactively supporting Dan in his college search and reaching out to engage college coaches on Dan's behalf. And we are very fortunate to have coaches embrace his passion and nourish it along the way. We do understand that in order to grow the program, all players need care and feeding. Coach Sultan is not inflexible, although I know that there is perception that he is, and we may take, he has taken positive action when presented with feedback. And he's done this numerous times by players, parents, and the Hardwood Club. And I should note that I am speaking on behalf as a parent, not on behalf of the Hardwood Club this evening. And with that being said, we have also experienced and witnessed situations where communication, understanding, and nurturing could be improved. Therefore, given today's events and those leading up to today, we would like to see a concerted effort on everyone's part to help make this program more successful. And by successful, we mean everyone having a stake in it. The administration, the coaches, the parents, and the players. Collectively, we all need to listen and hear the feedback being presented today. Acknowledge that improvements can be made and how the programs are overseen and evaluated. Take accountability for the leadership and direction. Establish measurable improvements that can be taken to address areas of concern and build upon those for year over year. For example, help nourish the program more within the high school student base as well as our feeder programs. I don't know, attend X amount of feeder games, invite younger players to games other than Junior Warrior nights, provide immediate feedback to players when pulled out or sitting for a game, or their status changes. We've heard that from many parents, that communication is lacking. Establish initial expectations of the players. I was happy to hear that that had taken place in the past. I don't believe it is happening today. And we need to make that communication more timely. We need to establish specific criteria for earning varsity letters and make sure that no one misunderstands what they need to do to achieve that. Improve communications, often proactive and across the entire program, freshman, JV, varsity, and understand that these are young boys. They're lacking the confidence to ask questions. My son was intimidated, but you know what? We've pushed him as parents to speak up, and he has a great relationship with Coach Salton. We need to build their confidence and give them a safe place to speak up. Having swing players lacking the understanding of their role is not a good situation. They need to understand where they're leaders and where they're learners. Allow for everyone to speak up, to ask questions, and encourage our children to ask and have them seek an open, honest relationship with their coaches, because we do want to have more than coaches. We want mentors and role models. They say information is power, and that there's no better way to obtain that contact, that correct information, is to talk and communicate to gain that understanding. So in the end, there should be no surprises where you stand. In closing, I want to offer my help and support, my experience and an ear to each and every one of you to make this program a success, and I will help to create a sustainable role model. I am here to build the program. I am here to make it better. And I do want to make a few public comments since my name and my family was spoken to. Rosa.
No, ma'am.
Oh.
You should address the board,
Oh, I'm sorry.
not
Okay.
the audience.
It was my mistake that a player was not included in the off-season invite. My mistake. If anyone wants to attend the off-season, they may. Simply reach out and ask. I have done that in years past. Anyone who has asked to play in off-season has been invited. The Booster Club is not run by Coach Salton. It is run by volunteers. We do not have any direction, leadership, or insight. No financial information is disclosed. No donations. There is not favoritism by anything that is done by the Booster Club. Anything is perceived. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good job.
Good evening. My name is Bonnie Baker Allen, and I'm from Greenbrook. I would like to speak to the board tonight because for the past 6 years, my family has been a part of the Watchung Hills Regional High School's boys basketball program. We have two sons, Isaiah and Noah, who have been a part of the program for the 4 years that they were at Watchung Hills. Both were part of the program from their freshman to their senior years. My youngest son will be a senior graduating this year. Their roles were very different on the varsity teams. Isaiah had a role that was limited in playing time, whereas Noah was a starter this year in his senior season and enjoyed extensive time on the court. I feel that the program demands a lot from the student athletes, including difficult daily practices, extended hours away from home, and a high level of physical and mental preparation. Much is asked for the student players before, during, and after the basketball season. These requirements are expected for the program to be successful. Because of this, there is a great level of commitment that is needed from the players. They have to respect the game, and they have to respect the team. There is also a level of respect that the players deserve. However, this is missing. The varsity program has not been fully committed to all of the players. The head coach does not communicate effectively with his players. They are not informed about individual playing status and often are left in limbo about their role on the team. This leaves the young teens feeling frustrated and discouraged. For these reasons, they are not given more nor at any times any playing time is neither apparent to them nor relayed from the coach. Goals for improvement are not set or monitored by the coaching staff. Without that, there is no way for the players to develop to their full potential. That should be at the top of the list of the priorities, and it also creates transparency. A program has to be transparent in order to ensure that every player is given a fair opportunity to succeed and grow. That has not been the case for this program. Not every player will be happy about his role on any team. Of course, most would like to have more playing time and a bigger role. But regardless of this, the player should feel respected and included. He should know that the hard work and dedication he has given to his team has not been overlooked or underappreciated. Every player should feel that he is valued, but often this is not the case. It has been discussed by parents and many times before and after the games. It is for these reasons I feel that you do whatever is possible to ensure that positive changes are made by Watchung Hills to the Watchung Hills boys varsity basketball program. I would like to join with the other parents tonight and just hoping that someday the program will be able to see change so that all of the boys feel included and valued. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Thank you very much for all of the comments, and certainly we will take those to heart. We'll move on to other business. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to bring up? Seeing none, motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Everyone be safe in what sounds like torrential rain outside.